Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Andrew. This video is part of an ongoing series where I talk about software design and how it relates to agile software development practices. In this video, I want to explore a little bit more about how long design takes and whether you can afford the time to do it. Those of you who've been following along with this series may have seen me do a demonstration of DesiGen, my design tool. I spent about 30 minutes in that video demonstrating how to do a design, and then in a separate video I spent another 18 minutes or so converting the code that was generated into a working application. It was while reviewing the footage for that I realised that that's probably not a very good demonstration. I spent quite a lot of that time talking about what I was doing rather than doing it. Not only that, but the templates I was using are set up in such a way that you have decisions that you're able to make that alter the way that the output is generated. And a lot of those decisions exist so that users have options from the built-in templates, which they won't necessarily need themselves. They'll probably make decisions and then use those decisions for everything else that they do. So I thought maybe I should do another video which is a bit of a speed run to show how fast we could go with a less flexible set of templates where decisions have already been made for us and where I'm not narrating as I go along. In this video, what I'm going to show you is a recording of me doing a design and code generation and then converting the generated code into a working solution without me doing the narration at the same time. And then I've overdubbed a narration in post effectively. In this video, I wanted to explore just how far we could go in moving quickly, how fast we could generate a design, a system, and then demonstrate it. Let's have a look. So the scenario is that we've had an email from the sales guy who's got someone in the boardroom and he wants us to create a prototype to try and win the customer over and convince them that they should give us some business. And as is often the case with sales guys, they haven't necessarily planned this through. They haven't thought through how long it might actually take to do this. So we've received an email and we're going to act on that email and produce a prototype. Let's have a look. Okay, so we're going to copy the requirements out of the email. That will be useful to us in a moment. You'll notice here that instead of creating a design from scratch, what I've done is I've started by cloning an existing design. That will be handy in a minute for saving us a bit of time in terms of some of the things that go into the design. Just giving it a sensible name. Be better if I could type. I should really have turned the light on when I did this. Okay, so we can paste in our requirements that came from the email. Now we need to add a data structure onto which we're going to base our design. We're going to record the details of an animal, and we need to record where that animal is on a site, which we're going to call location ref. So that's our data structure done. Now we need to add a bunch of artifacts to the design, which is going to be the output from the design. You'll notice that this time I use a different template. I've created a template which is a more real-world example of what you would use. In this template, a lot of decisions have already been pre-made, so it doesn't need to ask us to confirm things in case we need to rename things. Knowing what things are going to be called within the structure of the solution saves us some time in a minute. As before, we're going to enter a solution name. We're also going to enter a separate database name, although we'll use the same value. This time there's no confirmation screens. We don't need to click accept for all the defaults because I've turned off all the confirmation screens so that we just get all the defaults and that you can't change those. The benefit of that becomes clear when we get to the code. Okay, that's looking good. Now we need to add a feature slice. A feature slice is a name that I've created for all of the artifacts associated with creating an edit. So it goes throughout all the layers of the applications and creates all of the items that we're going to need. We still need to choose where things need to go within our solution structure and what data structure they're related to. But you'll notice that there are more items being added in this one kind of wizard step. We don't need to make decisions about which repository type we're using because that's already been made as part of the template. Okay, so that's all of our artifacts done. 2.5 minutes in. Here we are on the authentication screen, and we can see that there's already some information available to us. Here is where cloning a design at the start of the process gives us some benefit over creating a design from scratch. By cloning a design, we carry all of the information from the previous design into the current one, and that can save us some time if we think we won't need to modify some certain sections of a previous document. In this case, what I've chosen to do is enter information about authentication, which is applicable to all demos. All I need to do at this point is to cast my eye over it and make sure what is entered is valid and applicable in this situation, and then move on. And the same is true for the authorization screen. Okay, risk declarations. So I still need to add risks specific to this scenario because they may vary depending on what it is we're doing. But in this case, you'll notice that I have mitigations created for demo purposes. All of these potential risks and potential mitigations are editable. So I've just created an additional mitigation for each of the ones I'm going to use, which gives the text that otherwise I would have had to have put in. These screens don't look quite right at this resolution. That's because I'm running at a very high font size to make it clear for you on the screen what's going on. You wouldn't suffer from them being quite so strangely laid out. So that's 3 risks declared. Security categorization, again, that came from the design template that we used because we cloned rather than creating from scratch. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you have a single security categorization in a template. What is more likely is that you would have multiple and that you would choose from them. But you should be reading them and possibly changing them, bear in mind. Data retention policy similarly was carried across and makes sense in this case. So here we are at 3 minutes, just over 3 minutes 20 seconds, and we're creating the design document that we could print out and we could show to our customer to show that we did a design. Update the status to say we're ready to go and then generate the code from that design at 3 minutes 43. Generation just takes a few seconds, so that's our design done, and now we move to Visual Studio where we can open the solution. It always takes a few moments to open a solution in Visual Studio, so that's what we're waiting on at the moment. Now this time when we open the solution we can see that there's things in it. If you remember last time when I did the code portion of the demo, I started with an empty solution so that I had the opportunity to structure the solution the way I wanted. In this particular case, those decisions have already been made as part of the template, and because we knew what the projects were going to be called, all the projects can already exist in the solution. Now I don't mean that I hard-coded it to only work for a thing called animal management. Not at all, but what I did was I calculated up front what the names of the projects were going to be because they weren't easily editable to me. And so I was able to calculate them and, as part of the generation, output the names of the projects in the solution, so they're already included. We still need to do the step for the data storage project of adding the items to the project. It doesn't use globbing, this project type, so we have to add them manually. But that only takes a few seconds. And with that, we can build the data storage project, which is the definition of our database. It's built successfully, so now we can publish it. Just choose any old database on the same server to get ourselves a connection string. Then set the database name the way we want it. And then publish. Publishing to a new database does take about 30 seconds. For some reason it took longer than that in the last demo I did. But this time we'll see that it only takes about 25 seconds. That's our database created. So we can run the solution because there aren't any code changes to make. This solution should just work. All of the things that we had to do when I did the demonstration about taking the output from the code generation step have already been done as part of this template. So the build has succeeded and we're just waiting for the debugging to start against a browser window. I didn't necessarily need debugging, but that's just the way I started it. Here comes our browser window. We're going to need to change the URL in a moment to go to the endpoint at which our edit exists, because we don't do anything in the UI. So under 7 minutes we have a working system. We're just going to test that it's actually doing something. So we'll enter the name and location of a couple of animals. You can see with the green outlines on the boxes that our validation is all running correctly. Delete works, and changing an item also works. So there we are, under 7.5 minutes, and we've gone from an email from a sales guy to a working prototype. Not bad. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that. It was a bit of fun to push the boundaries and test how fast we could really go. I suppose the question that arises at the end of that is that a realistic demonstration? What I would say is it's probably not unrealistic. The time needed to do many repetitive tasks can be significantly reduced, especially if you're prepared to make upfront decisions and then create tailored templates that suit those decisions. This demo is, of course, based upon an ideal type of dev task. These types of data entry screens are very common, so they're an obvious target for some form of automation. Less frequently repeated tasks will not be as well optimized, as it isn't worth investing in a template for something that you only do a small number of times. One area that may be unrealistic in this demo is the risk management piece. We do need to stop and think about the risks associated with the development task that we're doing. Take a step back and think from a different point of view about the potential risks and their mitigations. Like with so many other things, I think there's a benefit to taking an agile approach to trying these new design techniques. Take small steps towards a greater goal. To begin with, you might have templates that get you most of the way to working code, but need some form of customization by hand. Some of the built-in templates are intended for that purpose. As you progress, there might be more benefit to be had by investing more time in your templates. What is possible is limited largely by the time you have available to modify the templates to suit your needs. But don't just take my word for it, maybe you should try this for yourself. This is a freely available tool, my gift to the industry. Go to getdesigning.dotnotstandard.com. Follow the links to the docs site from where you can download the tool and try it for yourself. Everything has a cost, of course, and in this case, that's learning and practicing the tool and the technique, and then developing the templates to generate the code you need, or customizing the existing ones. Well, this video has been an extra really. Consider this bonus DVD footage. But I hope you've enjoyed spending a few minutes with me, exploring the boundaries of what's possible with this tool, in a bid to answer the question of whether you can afford the time to do design. Thanks for joining me. See you again soon.